Hey everybody, welcome back to ArtosisCasts. Here we are in our next match in the Moonlight Pro League. Right now, Team ZeLoT is leading 1-0 in this best of 7 for round 1. And we are going into a ZERG versus Protoss up here in the top right of Butter. This is True. And in the bottom right, we have Motive. So, going to be a very good match, I think. You know, True has been showing a lot of skill lately. If you don't know who he is, of course, he was quite popular in StarCraft 2. Had some pretty decent results for a bit. Was a continual Code ZERG and did well at some international lands. A very aggressive Zergling-heavy player. Can't say he's too different in StarCraft 1, but definitely has been playing for a bit and ranked up there. And of course, Motive is someone that you will see on the channel quite a bit because he is one of these really rising Protoss players that we're kind of expecting a lot in the next year or two for him to really break into hitting ASL more consistently. So we'll see how it goes. It's Butter, and this looks like it is going to be a Forge fast expansion. Forge is generally considered the better way to play Butter rather than the ZeLoTs, just because the travel distance isn't like a little bit longer than some of these other maps. So he goes up and sees, okay, it is a spawning pool first. Looks like about a 12 pool or 11 pool right there. And, of course, this is going to tell him exactly when he needs to get that forge to make sure he's going to be completely fine back at home. Some decent harassment going on. And, yeah, nothing too crazy. Nothing out of the ordinary here as of yet. So I do want to thank you guys once again for supporting ArtosisCasts. Yeah, please make sure you subscribe, hit that notification button. It is kind of crazy that half the people that watch are not subscribed. I mean, I hope that you like high-level Brood War content. We're putting out pro gamer games every single day. Hundreds and hundreds in the backlog so far. And yeah, it's I'm putting a lot of work into it, really enjoying it as well. Lots of great stuff planned for it also coming up. So yeah, thank you everyone, and hope that you enjoy the variety that we've had lately. Right, I'm kind of jumping around. We're doing Moonlight Pro Leagues. We're doing the RISS, which is like some of the very best non-Korean players all invited. I actually have some of the top Chinese players playing Korean pros that we're going to be jumping into relatively soon as well. And of course, a new CNSL should be coming up soon. Also, which actually this channel and myself, through your guys' help, is partially sponsoring. Not huge, but, you know, growing, doing better. So thank you much, everybody. So taking a look at where we're at, the Nexus coming up. Of course, you know, this is kind of like when you go Forge Expand, there's really not a lot going on for a few minutes, right? There's no early ZeLoT. You can't put pressure on. The ZERG figures out, like, oh, it's Forge Expand, so they can't get aggressive. Like, I mean, every now and then you'll see some crazy speedling all in, but when the probe is left alive, it's actually not on the table. So this is kind of like the game that takes the longest. Like, once that gateway finishes, like, obviously you need to get the Cybernetics core up right away, but then generally you'll see a ZeLoT start, and the first ZeLoT generally, again, will get sent out on the map, and it'll do something like check the third base, right? Just to kind of make sure that you're covering all your bases. You have maximum info on what's going on. See that ZeLoT did get started in the production tab after the Cybernetics core. So starting to figure out what's going on, or he will continue to figure out what's going on. The layer was made at the natural. You can see that was some very good micro from True. I think that this is something really important to point out, because sometimes you see players that don't focus heavily on killing the probe. And the thing is, you won't always get the probe, but if you really work towards it, you get it a good percentage of the time, and you can get it before it gets full info, which I think is really, really important. So just something to point out there. I appreciate that True put in the effort. He just continually flanked, continually microed his lings, and did end up getting that probe. He doesn't know that there's a layer and things, right? Like, now we see a probe coming out again. The ZeLoT kind of pushed to give some false info, and then the probe goes up to try to get that scouting again. Now, speed is on the way, and we have about 10 Zerglings out. Spire goes up in the natural. There is a third base up. Let's see what type of information he can actually gain. With the Zerglings in the way, it's like really hard to get back in there. So just to know, he still hasn't seen the layer. Kind of important, right? Gets up. I mean, he sees the creep there, so he at least knows that we have a third base, but that's pretty normal. You're not expecting anything else. More Zealots have been made. That +1 on the way. First Corsair coming out as well. We should see the Citadel added momentarily here. Second cannon for Motive. This is kind of a hedging cannon. We talk about this one sometimes, where it's fairly often you're going to see a Protoss player that adds on at least a second cannon when they're not completely sure what's going on. Here it looks like he's going for a third, which I can't super blame him. His scouting hasn't been great, and it's probably better to spend 150 minerals and delay one of your gateways rather than just die to an aggressive push, which honestly, again, True is a pretty aggressive player. He's maybe not as aggressive as, like, let's say ZeLoT or 815, who are both also playing in here, but he's pretty aggressive, right? Anyways, the Corsair comes up. It sees the timing of the Spire, so he knows that he can kill this Overlord really easily. And now knows a lot about the build as well. Motive knows that it's like, okay, there's no Hydras coming. It could be Mutalisk, and in fact, seeing the speed of this gas makes me think it's very likely to be Mutalisk. Also, we can see, but of course, Motive has no idea. Carapace is on the way, which does point towards Mutalisk once again. Although it does not necessarily have to be, right? Like, you can just get that Carapace and utilize it later on. Which of course will be Mutalisks as well, but it's very different if you go Mutalisks before Hydralisks or after Hydralisks, right? If you go before, you're generally looking to control the flow of the game. You're looking to maybe do some damage, pick off Corsairs, things like that. Whereas if you go after Hydras, it's more just for picking off High Templars. Sometimes you get harassment in there too, but it's more for picking off those High Templars. So the Scourge come in. Oh my god! He just comes in from a funny angle and gets a Corsair. Really, really worth it, of course. So now just 3 Corsairs instead of 4. That is a little bit painful. Continually making them as well. Hanging out over the cannons. You see, True tried that again. He brought in some Scourge from the side, looking to get a Corsair pick. That's big. Like, if you get the first Corsair or the first 2 Corsairs, generally a top-level Zerg player will be able to kill the Protoss player in that situation with a Mutalisk build. Now, there is a third extractor coming up, so that's a hell of a lot of gas that's being mined. We don't see a Hydralisk Den yet. Oh, this is exciting. The Evolution Chamber's coming up. We'll see if this is going to be like a Carapace, a melee, or a range. I imagine it's going to be range, because I think eventually you probably need to go into... Wow, he actually has one here and one here. That's really funny. You probably need to eventually go into Hydras. But, I mean, you could play it a little bit risky and just stay pure Muta with some Lings. We'll see in a moment. That Carapace upgrade still just chugging away. A lot of Mutalisks is being made. Now, it looks like what we're actually going to see here is going to be like an Ogre Zerg gamer play. If you guys remember that from some old ASL casts with Tasteless and myself. Ogre Zerg gamer is when you do something like this, like you kind of push everything back, and then you just make like a ton of Mutalisks. And you're like, all right, let's go, right? So what generally happens with this is the Mutas will run in and do something like attack this cannon here, and the Scourge will fly in and just prevent the Corsairs from getting the Mutas. And then you do something like you kill the main base, right? That's oftentimes what you see. We'll see if that's the way that True wants to play it. Now, as ZeLoT comes up and sees the Mutalisks, I believe this is the first confirmation he has of there being multiple Mutalisks out. 12 Scourge over here as well, and it is time. By the way, Carapace and melee attack coming. So this is like a very, very dedicated Mutaling game out of True. Now, the Archon is fantastic from Motive. Oh my god, he has 8 Corsairs. Look at this. He wants to get a hit. He doesn't get the hit, and this is exactly what I was talking about with the Ogre Zerg Gamer. Let's see what these can do. The Corsairs fly away from those Scourge and turn around as the Scourge fly away from the cannons. Ooh, he gets one of them. You can see already some significant damage. He's gotten rid of that cannon. Now, it's not over. It's not like True just wins here. There's 2 Archons and a lot of Corsairs. So it looks like Motive, with his patience, he takes a little bit of damage, pushes everything out. Now, that first moment is probably the most important moment. There'll be one more moment likely for True that'll decide this for him, right? The first one, you're supposed to get as much damage as possible. That wasn't that much. I feel like Motive dealt with that very well. The second moment will be something with a lot of Scourge. Oh, God. Oh, God. He actually loses quite a few and takes a ton of damage there. But eventually, you're going to try to kill all the Corsairs. It's going to be like a big flank, a huge amount of Scourge coming in. Maybe your Muta's coming in to take hits. But you've got to reduce that Corsair count because otherwise they will just destroy everything. By the way, I just saw the Queen's Nest go up. Hive. Oh my God. Like, we might be going into Adrenal. We might be going into Devourers. It's a possibility is all I'm saying. Not something that you really ever see. Now, here we go. He comes in, tries to get those hits. Doesn't really reduce them. Does not really. Oh my God, the Archon comes up to save those Corsairs there as well. Okay, gets another hit there. So he's got him down a little bit lower. He's got him down to 8 Corsairs, and some of them are relatively damaged. A lot of Lings being produced right now. Definitely does need those Lings. I don't know if this is going to end up working. He's continually making the Scourge as well. Scourge Ling production is super cheap, but requires a lot of larvae. So you do see his money starting to peak up a little bit. Notice a macro hatch coming down right there. He definitely does need some more, just because it is hard to spend all your money with such cheap units. Now, the Corsairs coming in, this is the problem, right? We already saw a lot of the Scourge die. True needs to deal with these. This is a terrible situation. He actually comes in with the Mutas. The Mutas can't win this. He brings in Scourge to flank, but they're a little bit slow. He only gets 1, so we're back down to 8. Ling's going down, checking for a third base. There's no third base here. Instead, Motive has expanded over to this side. Some Archons and Zealots, not even that many, walking up across the map. But really, the story of this game is the Corsairs. The Corsairs are killing so much. Look at the supply. Twice the supply right now for a Motive. He's doing a great job against this very dedicated Mutalisk build. And you can see some spores being made to try to protect him. Oh my God, the Corsairs killing all the Scourge before they can get in there. Ooh, this is getting worse and worse. 62 of 39. Now, there's some decent static defense going up for True. So, you know, it's something to mention. Another macro hatch comes up. Adrenal on the way. A lot of Overlords being hatched. Obviously, one spore doesn't really stop these. The Corsair count is getting reduced a little bit here as well. But here we go. Motive running in, getting on top of this first Sunken. These other Sunkens not firing continually, so not getting as much damage as he's looking for. He did get some shots onto this Archon, which is nice. And, I mean, these are they're well placed. It's hard to get through there. One of the Archons pops. Okay, that's a big moment. That's really important. The Corsairs have fallen back. He's not really producing Corsairs anymore, by the way. So there is the possibility of more Mutalisks being created once again. Adrenal almost done. 1-1 is done. And what are the upgrades on the Protoss units? Let's take a quick look. Just 1-1. So we're going to have equal upgrades on those Zerglings, which is incredibly important. It makes the Zealots go back to 3 hitting Zerglings, which is big. And then, of course, as soon as Adrenal is done, Zerglings are pretty much cost efficient against almost everything. They attack so quickly. Zergling upgrades are absolutely amazing. Okay, so 2-2 gets started for those Lings. It's still mostly Scourge and Lings being made here from True. A Defiler Mound. Oh my God. That's kind of crazy. But one thing that I can definitely say, like, ZeLoT Archon here is going to be really strong. And of course some Storms too if he can muster them. But ZeLoT Archon against, like, basically Lings and Defiler seems like a good play. Like, the Dark Storm's not going to do that much. Plague doesn't do anything to Archons except make them look cooler. It literally does less damage to them than a single Hydralisk attack. So, not a big deal there. Now, it looks like he wants to attack, but obviously this type of army doesn't break these areas very well. You want a more Dragoon-heavy army, but Dragoon's not good against, like, Lings into Defilers. Oh my God. 18 kills. 18 kills on this High Templar. Absolute insanity. A huge amount of damage there, too. Oh my God. And there was a DT in here as well. Huge amount of damage to the economy here of True. True having a hard time this game. Nothing he's doing is really working out right now. But we have this Ling counterattack on the 4th base. He might be able to just kill this Nexus. If he just right-clicks it, it should end up dying. Cracklings just... they kill buildings so quickly. It's absurd. Look at this, getting on top of some of the High Templars. Maybe a Storm. Oh, well, I mean, I said they kill them really quick, right? You saw how quickly that Nexus fell. It's truly hilarious. Some cannons with zealots on the ramp, so that will slow them down a bit. There are some dragoons being added in. Now, the dragoons in this scenario should be just to take down the fringe buildings, right? Like, dragoons do explosive damage, which is full against buildings. Because they have such high damage, they don't care about building armor very much. It doesn't really take off that much from the hits. And they don't get screwed up, right? Like, you see the way this is placed. Zealots and Archons have a hard time attacking there. Dragoons really don't. So I like the addition of some Dragoons, but not making it Dragoon heavy. You can see on the production tab, Motive continues to produce mostly Zealots, Archons, and High Templars. And that's really what's going to work out best against these Zerglings for him. The Zergling's running around a little bit. He's trying to utilize the mobility, the speed of these Lings as best he can. Gonna go ahead and surround. Obviously, like, Adrenal Lings against Dragoons is not even close. It's like they just destroy. Look at that. Kill off the High Templars before they can morph. Picks off 2 of them. Very, very useful units. He's got a ton of hatcheries to be able to spend this all down. And now we see the switch back into Mutalisks as well. I'm not sure what the Corsair count is anymore, honestly. He may have lost those just kind of randomly through the game. Let me zoom out a bit and see if we can find them. Yeah, I think they're not here anymore. Like, I think he actually, like, spent them doing some harassment during other attacks. But Motive has a ton of supply. If those Mutas can get in and do some significant damage, though, like, Mutas do okay. He's got +2 carapace here. He's jumping on the cannons. The Ling's coming up. Look at this. True is going to be able to kill this base. This is actually a huge deal right now. A nice storm comes up, flies away, well, he forces an Archon morph there at least. Now, DT coming up. We have another High Templar as well for some storms. In the meantime, we have a counterattack here. Some storms going down. Oh my god, both sides have tons of damage being dealt. The Mutas, I don't think, can quite finish this because of the Archon. And this attack from Motive is dealing so much damage. He's going to kill this Macro Hatchery. He's killed a lot of the Static D. And the thing is, with 3 Archons with +2 attack, a few Dragoons for support, a few Storms, the Mutas can't really engage in here. Like, the Archons are just so strong against clumped up Mutalisks. It's very, very tough. A lot of Lings rallying out of this third base. And, of course, they do have fantastic upgrades. But this army is so anti what True is going for. You notice he has a Defiler bound. We haven't seen a Defiler because it doesn't do much against this, like I mentioned before. A very tough situation for this unit composition. You can see some of the weaknesses and why we don't see it as often. It definitely, if you get ahead with it, you can kind of carry the game forward. But he really wasn't able to get much damage with that first Ogre Zerg Gamer move. He's trying for some counterattacks. Look at that. Picking off some High Templars. Good moves. The DT worth its weight in gold over here. Unable to be seen. There's no Overlord around. And you know what? He might get the Nexus. That is a possibility. Going after some of the probes here instead. And he is doing that damage, but the main base of True completely under fire. Gonna lose that spawning pool, which is, oh, brutal. He's not going to be able to produce basically anything anymore. Needs to make a new spawning pool immediately. But, well, I mean, let's see. If he kills this Nexus, there's still this one mining. But other than that, he's pretty out. Now, does he have enough to actually kill this? It's a lot of cannons left over. It's a lot of Zealots in there. And the main army of Motive looks like it's enough to kill everything that's left. It's like 2 Sunkens here, 3 here. Only really Mutalisks being produced at the moment. The Spire is alive. That was left alive, so it's really the only attacking unit he can make. Now, he's flying around trying to pick off anything he can. He got rid of the High Templars, which is nice. But the Archons are like this huge problem. You can technically out-micro Archons with Mutas, but I think he literally doesn't have enough time. I think the overall army will kill every building he has before the Mutas can kill the Archons with perfect micro. Because if you don't micro perfectly here, the Archons will win. So he brings them in. Let's see if he can do them. It's not looking like it right now. And that's going to be that. Another win for Team ZeLoT as Motive takes down True.